Hello again from my front porch. You know, I've had on the last few days, I've had the topic of responsibility on my mind. And what's brought it up is all of this talk about this Olympic gymnast. I think I pronounced her name correctly if I say Simone Biles. Simone Biles, I believe is how you pronounce her name. She's with Team America, and unless you've been living under a rock, you are familiar with the fact that she is a multiple medaled gymnast, and that this wasn't her first Olympics either, but that she was defending world champion actually for her title, and that she abruptly withdrew, pulled out of the competition to defend that title. And also that impacted a role she was playing with other members of the team. Team USA wound up getting silver, not gold. There was speculation as to whether they would have gotten gold had Ms. Biles not withdrawn like she did. And so then, of course, that resulted in there being some controversy about that. Now, there are those, obviously, who then objected to that. And then there's just been this massive flood outpouring of praise for her because the reason she withdrew was because she said her head wasn't in it, that she was concerned about her own mental health, that her head wasn't screwed on straight for doing that. I think what's the term, that she had a case of the twisties? I think that's what she said. That in gymnastics, when a gymnast is doing their oh, sounds like I have a motorcycle going by. Oh yeah, I wish I had the camera faced the other way. This guy, oh yeah, he's definitely one of those weekend bikers. He's got all these fancy lights on his bike, and he's got all his gear on, and he's riding, and you can just tell he's probably like just Mr. Accountant, and he's looking cool. But anyway, but back to Simone Biles. There've been this outpouring of support because she acknowledged her need for the mental break, for her mental health, and a lot of the support has been in the context of her acknowledging that and elevating that above concerns over the gold medal stuff. She's putting her own mental health concerns first. So it's hard to falter for that, of course. And there's been this, as I said, tremendous amount of support for that. So with all of that being the case, then she and her scenario has been on my mind about this concept of responsibility. And actually, for me, I see three elements of responsibility that come into play here. Now, frankly, one element of responsibility is her responsibility to her team and to her country. She is part of an Olympic program. She's not a novice to any of this, so she knew what she was signing up for. She knew what happens in this scenario, and she knew that she was going to be there representing not just herself, but her team and her country. And because she's strong and because she's good at what she does, she competed. She worked to get to the level she was at. She wasn't just pushed into it and thrown into that. She did the work to get to that point. And a lot of people invested a great deal in support of her going there and doing that, with the intention that they were supporting this with the idea that the United States, that she, and then by extension the country, would earn a gold medal in whatever she was competing in. And so there are those who, I believe, there have some degree of validity in being upset that she did not honor her responsibility. I mean, it would be kind of like me as someone doing my job at my company. If I was hired to do, you know, such and such kind of job, and I start doing it and I throw myself into it and I'm just doing it, and then we get right up to the finish line, right where I'm going to implement everything that they want, and I suddenly go, you know, well, hold on, I don't feel good about this. I can't handle this. Stop. Now, it would be the same scenario that she just did with the Olympics, but I don't know that my company would look as favorably on that. I don't know that I would receive the accolades that she has received for what she, because when you put it in a different context, it really is a scenario where an individual has made a commitment to do certain things, and because of that commitment and their demonstrated level of engagement, others depend on that. And then that person not only doesn't deliver, but literally withdraws, steps away from fulfilling the obligation, leaving everybody else hanging. That is irresponsible. It is a shirking of responsibility. And that is true. That is true. However, if we were to just evaluate her based on that, then obviously she would look very bad. But I said there's three elements of responsibility that occurs to me. There is that element of responsibility, and I think there is validity to those that would make that observation. You know, you make a commitment, you see it through. You need, you know, that is in general, a good mindset. So that's one element of responsibility that comes out of this. But the other element of responsibility that comes out of this is the one that we've heard the most about, and there's been the most praise for her about, and that is the responsibility we each have to ourselves. You see, using my scenario of like with my company, if I was hired to do certain things and I throw myself into doing those things, and then we get right up to the launch and I pull the plug, well, am I being irresponsible because I'm not following through, or why am I pulling the plug at the last minute like that? What is the reason? From my perspective, why don't I feel good about seeing it through to the end? You know, in that scenario, it could be in a number. It could be that something has changed. I don't like the way something's being handled. I don't like an emphasis. I don't, you know, now that we've got this far, now there's these other pieces that have come into play, and hold it, the pieces aren't lining up right. Stop. No, we need not do it. That could be my motivation in that kind of context. So we need to take that same consideration then and apply it to Simone Biles. In her case, she says, I knew I would fail. I knew I would fail because like I said, the twisties, the gymnastic thing, I think that's what I was talking about before the motorcycle guy came up. When they talk about a gymnast is able to tell when they're doing those spins and flips and twirls and things in the air, that they're just, their inner core, they're able to tell if they're going to be able to balance it correctly and land it correctly, and if they start to feel off, if they get a little disoriented in that, or it doesn't, you know, something internally is out of whack with that, then that's what they call the twisties, and it means that, you know, they just don't have that solid assurance, that confidence that they can do that. And as soon as they start having lack of confidence of what they can do, then they're in a lot of trouble. I mean, that's the case with any of us that you know, we would step. I sing national anthem, you know, at events, and I love doing that. And people say, oh, you must be really, you know, just it's just cut and dry. You probably don't have to think about it. It's actually, it would be great if I didn't think about it. The problem is I do. I think about it every time. And I will literally be standing there. If you ever are in an event where I'm singing national anthem and you watch me, you will see that just the minute or two before I'm supposed to do it, you'll see me standing there, and I'll kind of have my head down or turned away, and I'll be standing there going, oh, say, can you? Oh, say, can you see? Oh, say, can you see? And the reason I'm doing that is because I have this terrifying terrifying fear that they're going to say, and now singing our national anthem is Paul Smith, and I'm going to go, what's the first word? Oh, I mean, you know, and now, has it ever happened? No. But I have this fear that it will. And so because of that, I obsessively will be practicing not only the first line, but the first notes. In fact, I just sang at the Iowa Cubs, and there was conversation going on, distracting me so that I wasn't able to do that I normally do. And as a result, when I started singing, I started on the wrong note. I started on a note lower than I would normally start on. And at that point, you got to go with it. And so I sang it in that key, and it was a key lower than what I normally would sing it at. And everybody said it sounded okay, and I've listened to it, it sounds okay. But it sounds weird to me, and it felt weird because it's not the performance I would normally do. And it was thrown off because I didn't do the little warm-up thingy or my little obsessive thing beforehand. Now, that's not the same thing as competing at the Olympics. Don't get me wrong. I'm not trying to drop, but I'm trying to say that people who are being critical and not understanding what she's saying by saying, I knew I couldn't do it. I knew that my head was not where it needed to be. I knew I couldn't do it. People who are being critical of that, I'm trying to draw a parallel that all of us are in situations different than medal situations for the Olympics, but we're all in situations where we do the same kind of stuff. And that national anthem performance, you know, I really wish I would have been able to have been separated away so I could have done that and stepped out and done that more the way I would have preferred to do it. Now, I still made it through, and I think she still would have made it through an Olympic performance if she did, but she would not have been pleased with it, and she very likely might not have medaled because the passion wouldn't have been there, the focus wouldn't have been there, and you know, if she had the twisties, maybe she would have messed up. Who knows? I mean, she obviously felt like she knew, and so she withdrew. Now, each of us has that level of personal responsibility to ourselves, that we need to have the confidence of knowing ourselves to say, okay, I don't care what anybody else expects. I know me, and I say I can do this, or I say I cannot do this. Right now, I cannot do this. We need to have that level of confidence in ourselves, that level of responsibility to ourselves. So the first level of responsibility, yes, she had to her team and to her nation, and she may have dropped the ball there. I mean, honestly, I think she did leave some people hanging with that. But then there's the second level of responsibility to herself, and she aced that one. She nailed it, and she didn't just do it because she was throwing a fit or a temper tantrum or trying to make a statement or anything like that. She did it because she knew herself well enough to know this is not going to work out well if I try this. I need to not do this. And she didn't. But while most discussion is a balance between those two, I'm going to throw in the third element. You see, in the stories about her, it turns out that in previous competitions, including last Olympics, her mental state has been a topic, that her coaches are aware of this, that they had to deal with this in previous competitions. So this is not a new thing that she just a flake out of thin air was like, oh, I can't handle the pressure. No, this has been an ongoing struggle. Her mental status and situation has been established as an issue. So then the question I have is, what were her coaches and her team doing? I don't mean her teammates. I mean the infrastructure behind the scenes, the team directing her. What was being done to support her? What was being done to address those areas? What was being done to intervene? What was being done to make sure she did not feel the level of pressure, the level of stress that she clearly did feel that caused her to withdraw? You see, those people who are using her to win a medal, and I know that sounds harsh, but that is the case. Every one of those athletes is out there representing our nation, and I believe that's true, that's what they're there for. There's a lot of money being spent on them, and there's all this investment, but the reason all that's done is because we as a country want to be able to brag that our athletes brought home the medals, which means we are exploiting and using their talent and their drive to compete so that we can be those armchair athletes bragging over what we accomplished. Well, that's all fine and good as long as the individuals, as long as the athletes are on board with it, as long as they're as into it as well and they want to do it. That's, you know, okay. It's not a bad thing. It's not an evil thing, unless you have a situation like we have with Simone Biles, where you have an individual who clearly has struggles, and they are documented, they are known, they are not a secret, and we clearly still don't do enough to help. We clearly failed in being, those people they're supposed to be looking out for failed in their responsibility to her. So, 3 areas of responsibility. Her responsibility to her nation and her team. I do think her withdrawing, yeah, she let those people down, and she caused her team to have to regroup, and they moved on ahead, and it happens. I mean, obviously, if somebody had been injured, they have to do that too. So it's not like it's an absolutely horrible ending thing, but her voluntarily choosing to withdraw when she was healthy enough to be able to do it, yeah, she let people down. But then there's the question of, was she mentally healthy enough to be able to do it? She says no, and she was true to herself and withdrew. That's second area of responsibility, and she aced that one. But then there's that third area of responsibility. Those who had a responsibility to her. Now, I don't know every detail of everything that's happened, but from what I do know, my judgment call is they failed her. They let her down. They did not live up to their responsibility. So, you've got her not living up to her responsibilities in number one, because of number two, her living up to her responsibility to herself, which, makes number one a little hard to fully argue about and enforce. But then there's number three, the people who failed her, who did not hold up their responsibility to her, creating the situation for her to do number two, which resulted in number one. So, bottom line, don't judge Simone Biles. What she did here was because of what she needed to do here, because these people failed to do what they should have done here. Had these people done their jobs, she would not have made the decision she did, and she would have competed, and everything would have been as planned. So before you point your finger at her and say she is a failure or she let the country down because of this, keep in mind this happened because these people didn't do their job. When we start pointing the fingers of responsibility and we start making accusations as to who was responsible for what, sometimes we need to take a step back and really consider the full picture. That's my challenge to you and to myself. And with that, I'll see y'all next time from my front porch.